I got a hunch. Two teams, one city, one Super Bowl. Rams, Chargers. It might happen. We'll talk about it today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of The Barbershop, which is the Locked On NFL PM show that comes on every afternoon here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And as usual, I'm joined by the guest of the day every Tuesday, my man Kevin Oestreicher from Locked On Ravens. And we're going to get together here and run it down for you about some of the biggest stories that are happening in the NFL or the ones that we create. We created today's show for real. All right. I got to let you know, though, that today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. And you might have to do that this year when you want a ticket to some of these games featuring some of these teams. But what we're going to do today is look at three cities or two cities in one area. We're going to look at Los Angeles. Then we're going to look at New York, and then we're going to focus on Baltimore and Washington. Why? Because teams from the same geographical area that make a Super Bowl can really, really, really boost that city and the narratives around the game. So the Battle of the Beltway will come at the end. The New York race from the bottom. Ain't nobody talking about the Giants and the Jets winning the Super Bowl, but we'll figure out who ain't going to finish last. But we're going to start with the Rams and the Chargers. My man Tyler Rowland talked about the Chargers and said that they might win or that they will win the AFC West. I think they're a good team. That's a good division. Kevin Oestreicher, we'll look at both of these teams, man. What do you think about the prospects that both the Rams and the Chargers, two teams, one city, will meet for one championship?
I think it's possible. I think it's much more likely the Rams get there than the Chargers do.
Oh.
I mean, we've seen pretty wild and crazy things happen before here, Wig, where it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. Now, if you go over to FanDuel, you look at the odds, it's plus 11,000 right now. So not out of the realm. That's not terrible. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility here. From a Chargers perspective, I need to see it first for them. And I think Justin Herbert's a good quarterback, right? I think he's in that top 10 conversation. You know, where he is, I know varies depending on who you talk to. But the way that they operate, and we had this conversation, you and I, a couple weeks ago. It's the Greg Roman offense for me, right? That's me. I can't get over it. I can't get over it. And, you know, maybe it is a little biased thing of watching Baltimore and all that happen with Lamar, and Lamar spread his wings once Greg Roman left. Maybe it's the same thing for Justin Herbert, where, you know, I'm not sure I love their offseason personally. I mean, I like the Omarion Hampton pick. I think he'll be really good for them. I just feel like, to me, Ladd McConkey's the X factor there. Can he take a leap? He was awesome for them last season, but also Quentin Johnston is a guy. Like, if he can step up, if Ladd McConkey can take a year or two leap, I like what they're going to do. But to me, it's the interior guard play as well. You know, they have great tackles. Joe Alt or Sean Slater. The interior of that line was a major weakness for them and put Justin Herbert in a lot of bad spots. You know, you want to play the Rams in a Super Bowl? Well, you're going to have good guard play if you want to win. So
yeah,
that to me is the big factor.
And I think Harbaugh can get it done. I tell you what, first step is to get a coach and quarterback, and then the players have to buy into the quarterback. And that's exactly what second-year player Deion Henley, who I'm a huge fan of, he talked about Justin Herbert and how he feels about him with Locked On Chargers.
Man, I can say a whole bunch of more passionate words about him, because when I hear stuff like that, like dudes doubting Justin Herbert, it makes me get passionate, because I'm like, that's somebody I truly believe in. Like, we need him. And not to say anything about our backup quarterbacks, but when Justin goes down, bro, I'm on the sideline. I'm like, get up. Get up. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, get up, Justin. Like, that's so I don't even want to entertain people like that. That's and you know what I'm saying? That's my little dissertation on the subject. But Justin is a guy. He is a guy. He's proven. Check the stat books.
Hopefully Jim Harbaugh's presence can minimize the effects of Greg Roman on Justin Herbert. He had a pretty good year last year. The Chargers are going to keep chugging along. One team we don't have to worry about, though, is the Rams. I think a lot of people are afraid of the Rams because people saw what the Rams almost did against Philly. Now, I know it doesn't carry over year to year, but it's not like they stood pat. They went and got Devontae Adams to add to that team, and then they drafted well all over again, just like Les Snead seems to do every year. They were almost ready to pull the trigger and bring Jalen Ramsey back home, but Locked On Rams says no harm, no foul. They didn't get him. Check this out.
Okay, so the Rams did not trade for Jalen Ramsey. They did not bring him back. And yes, could he have helped this team? And would he have been possibly an upgrade if you got the best version of what he's capable of at this stage of his career? Sure, it's possible. And I think contractually, you look at the fact that he got a raise and the Steelers are going to be paying him $26 million, and he's also probably going to want something in the future, did not necessarily make the most sense for the Rams' current roster build and where they're at with the state of their franchise.
Look, most of the times you don't get two teams in one city. You do in New York, basically, or New Jersey or whatever. But we'll talk about them in just a second. Washington and Baltimore is pretty close. But this would be special to me because you can't get rivalries in the Super Bowl. You can't get Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. You can't get Kansas City versus Denver. You can't get Atlanta and New Orleans. You probably wouldn't get that anyway. But y'all get my point. You're not going to get Washington and Dallas. They all have to go through each other. This is the closest thing we'll get to having that narrative. I think it's possible. And not only do I think it's possible, I think it's worth going to FanDuel and laying something down on it. And if it does, I'm going to favor the Rams, of course, in that game. But the Chargers play a certain kind of football, man, and they'll kind of make you come into their – if they make you come into their phone booth with them, they can get you. We got a long season ahead of us, but I think this will be something that will be really, really exciting for the National Football League. Where's the Super Bowl this year? It was at Arizona? Is it in Glendale somewhere?
No, it's Santa Clara.
It's insane. So it would still be in California. It wouldn't include the 49ers. Obviously, that's where they play. But it would still be in California. I just think it would be huge. Lots of stories. It's the Battle of L.A., and I'm already just trying to set it up. Look at me trying to manufacture stuff, man, to make stuff happen just to make me happy, Kevin. What are you going to do with me, man? What are you going to do with me? I tell you what. Let's talk about New York because I got to be – ain't no East Coast, West Coast beef here. I got to be fair. I'm going to talk about the Jets and the Giants. But this is not about who's going to win the championship. I'm not going to say a race from the bottom. I will say this. Who's going to get better first and make themselves good enough to be considered a contender? We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute that you wanted to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time definitely makes that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Here's what you want to do, man. Those seat views are very important to you. You get a chance to see your seat right on the app before you buy so you know exactly where you'll be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Locked On NFL here. Tony Wiggins along with Kevin Oestreicher from Locked On Ravens. All right, we talked about the good. Let's talk about the bad of our dream matchups of teams in the same geographical area. I think one of these teams will be better this year than the other team. That's obvious, right? I mean, somebody has to be better than the other one. But the team that's not going to be better this year probably has a bigger outlook moving forward. That's because they've already started over. And that team is the New York Jets. Listen to John Butchko from Locked On Jets talk about Aaron Glenn and his effect on that club.
You know, the easiest time to be a head coach is that first offseason before the first offseason after you take over, because you haven't done anything worth criticizing. You never had a bad game plan. You never made a bad in-game decision. You never made a bad challenge. You never wasted a timeout. There's nothing to criticize you on. And for the fan base and the media, you're kind of a blank slate. They can put whatever positive attributes they want to on you because you haven't proven them wrong yet. I like a lot of what Aaron Glenn has done this offseason. But now that the offseason is nearing its end, the tough task begins.
He's the coach that did not let go of Saquon Barkley. He's the coach and the GM that did not give Daniel Jones an extension. He's a new coach coming in with new ideas. He's going to be given a little bit more rope. I think Aaron Glenn, as long as he shows a positive turnaround and function, will get a little bit more of a mulligan than anybody.
Yeah, and I think that this was the right decision for the Jets. I loved the hire when it happened, and the fact that they're taking a chance on Justin Fields, who they clearly believe in. They have talent in terms of guys like Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner. Their roster is not bad. It's not a bad roster. I just think that, the overall meshing of some of the stars, a la maybe an Aaron Rodgers is one of that, and look, for the past 2 seasons, they expected Aaron Rodgers to be there 2 years ago. He suffered a season-ending injury in the first 4 minutes of that game or 2 minutes of that game, and he was done. And then he had to kind of scramble for the rest of the year because your big plan, your big acquisition was gone. And then he came out for that last year, was fine, but wasn't great due to his standards. And there were injuries and guys underperforming. And clearly something had to happen, and they made the right decision, moving off Robert Saleh and getting a new guy in there. Where, to me, this Giants team, maybe if you want to argue the floor of a Russell Wilson or a Jameis Winston can be better than the floor of a Justin Fields, I can get behind that. But you know me, Wig, I'm not a Brian Daboll guy. I've not been a Brian Daboll guy. I think he should have been gone 2 years ago. And I just think the Giants are delaying the inevitable. And you mentioned it, the team that started over, there are always going to be growing pains with that. People are going to learn how to get acclimated to one another, and that happens by experience, and experience is playing in games that matter. And so your record might not reflect the progress that is actually being made. But I think for this Giants team, they're just going to be in the same situation that we've seen the past handful of years where, man, it's a bad year. And then, all right, here comes Jackson Dart for the last half of the year. Let's see what we got. And then Brian Daboll gets fired, a new guy comes in and says, Jackson Dart's not my guy. I don't want this guy. I just think it was a mismanaged offseason from the Giants. Now, does it mean the Giants are going to be 4 wins worse than the Jets? No, it doesn't mean that. But I think the Jets are in a much more promising situation, which doesn't always get reflected in the actual final win and loss record.
I was just going to say that. They might not win a whole bunch more games than they won last year, but it'll look different. And I know the Jets fans and Jaguar fans don't want to hear this, and Jets fans don't. But Jaguars and Jets fans are very similar. They have a characteristic. You know what that characteristic is? They cheer their butts off no matter what the product has been, no matter what historically has happened. They are rabid. They will fight you in a minute about their team if you say something bad about them, even though there's a lot of bad that could be said about them. And the organization just has not given them enough over the years for them to be doing that, but yet and still, here they are. So any sign of progress that you see from Aaron Glenn is going to be treated almost like they're back in the Super Bowl again until they actually get there. On the other hand, the Giants, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane might be the most lamed up coaches I've ever seen, coach and GM I've ever seen. And the Giants got what they asked for. You know why? Because they fired Jerry Reese and Tom Coughlin within years, a few years after both of those dudes as GM and coach beat the Patriots 2 times in a 4-year period and did something that other people can't do. They beat both GOATs to win those 2 championships. Even when they weren't a better team, they figured it out. They've lacked an identity for a lot of years. I wonder if they can get an identity now. Maybe look at the best part of your team, which is your pass rush, and maybe those young wide receivers. Listen to Patricia Traynor talk about the Giants receiving core.
Overall, I just feel better about the receivers, this mix that they have, the potential that's there. I think Malik Neighbors is going to certainly match his numbers from last year, if not top them. Very optimistic about that. I'd like to see Jalen Hyatt get in there and have a career year, because I know the guy works at it. He works at his craft, just hasn't had that opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see this all play out, because Was it the quarterbacks that really held the receivers back, or was it the receivers that held themselves back? Usually the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Ooh, she's speaking bars. Patricia Traynor dropping heat at Locked On Giants. She said she was preaching, bro. I think it's a combination of everything. When you lose, you can blame a little bit on everything. Sometimes people get to the point where they blame it on the biggest problem and they think that it got rid of everything. So out goes Daniel Jones, in comes Russell Wilson, who 3 teams in the last 4 years have said, no, we don't want him to be our quarterback.
Yeah. And I mean, you got Jameis Winston behind him. You got Jackson Dart behind him. So you have a lot of options. The issue is, well, how good are all of your options? And look, I think Jameis Winston, especially towards the end of the year in Cleveland, I mean, we all knew what was going on, Wig. I mean, they were playing Bailey Zappi and, all these other, and Jameis was healthy. And you're like, okay, what's really going? It's like, the Brian Windhorst, what's going on in Cleveland right now? And I think we all knew it was happening. But I think that Jameis is he still has it. Now it's more as a backup that can fill in as a starter at times. I wouldn't throw him out there for 17 games and say, yeah, we can win a Super Bowl here. But I think he's a really solid depth piece. The issue is at this point in his career, I also think Russell Wilson is a really solid depth piece. And so you're throwing out these guys that probably shouldn't be starters anymore or on the very low end of that starter totem pole alongside a first-round rookie where, again, you can look at the Cleveland situation this year and be like, yeah, Joe Flacco's the guy. He's the vet in that room. He'll probably start week 1 for them. But the thing with Cleveland is I feel like halfway through the year, we're just going to see it. Cleveland's going to say, well, what do we got in Shedeur? What do we got in Dylan Gabriel? And that'll be the rule. For New York, this is Brian Daboll's, I think, yeah, you got to put up or shut up here. Like, this is it for you. You don't want to be in that situation. If it gets to that point, Daboll's not going to survive the whole season, let alone get another year. So, and if you want to combine these two teams, Wig, the Jets and the Giants over on FanDuel, you can get a little bit of a long odds here, plus 300,000.
Ooh,
300,000. 30,000. No, you added zero.
Oh my, 300,000 for those two.
300,000.
Yeah,
so I don't know how spicy you're feeling, Wig, but
that's why we didn't talk about them winning a championship. We talked about them just who's going to be relevant faster. So look, Jameis Winston. I'm a Florida State fan. Everybody knows that. Jameis has a baseball background. Jameis is like a closer, a really good closer. And what I mean by that, before y'all kill me and say, what do you mean it's a closer? He ain't winning no games. Listen, most closers can throw 20 pitches with any starter in the Major League Baseball. They can. They got that heat, man. They got that stuff. The problem is when he has to pitch a whole game because that's when the variance comes in. Jameis Winston at his best is a top 7 quarterback in terms of when he's good. But when he's bad, he's bottom 7. The point is he just throws it to the other team too much. So he's a guy that should be, like you said, he's good in spurts. He should be a middle reliever or he should be a closer. But the problem is in the National Football League, you got to run it from the rooter to the tutor as a starting quarterback. They need you the whole game. And unfortunately, Jameis hasn't done good enough. We're going to get to the Battle of the Beltway. Y'all know I got a background in PG County in the DMV. Baltimore is not the DMV, by the way. Baltimore fight you if you call them the DMV. They are Baltimore. But I do know that some points in Southeast DC and Baltimore is about a 30-minute ride on BW Parkway or the Beltway. What if they had a Super Bowl with those two quarterbacks that happen to be very good friends? We'll discuss that, both teams, here in segment 3 of Locked On NFL. If you look over on FanDuel, the best odds of all might be Washington and Baltimore making it to the Super Bowl. It might be better than the plus 11,000, I think you said it was, for the LA Rams and the LA Chargers. Obviously, Baltimore is the team that is most likely to make it because of their pedigree and their quarterback and how good people really believe they are. So we'll let Kevin talk about them in just a second. I want to get to Washington, though. Because there's some people telling me I need to pump the brakes, like Julian Council. Pump the brakes on Washington. Hold on, man. David Harrison says that's foolishness because he thinks their roster is loaded. I want you to hear him from Locked On Commanders.
But looking at the roster as it is right now, you have to appreciate at least that you have a team that's not just so desperate to go get a name, go make a move, go satisfy the talking heads, go satisfy, the fan base on social media and all that stuff. by just going out there to make a move for the sake of making a move. Every single move that you see this Washington Commanders team make, even the splashy ones on the offensive side, they make sense. They fit what the overall message is from the team, and they fit just kind of what you would imagine seeing this team do.
Turned that whole organization around. They were one of the worst run organizations in all of sports, not just the NFL. Sold the team to a new group. Well, they bought the team from a bad owner in Daniel Snyder, and then were able to totally flip that thing around in 1 year. Jaden Daniels has a lot to do with that. People are expecting a year 2 slump. I'm not. I think it's real. What about you?
I think the notion of a year 2 slump for the Commanders, I hesitate to even use that word for them, for the reason that, look, you get a rookie quarterback in, he blows the doors off of what the expectations were for him and this team. I know people expected him to be better. People didn't expect him to do what they did. I mean, it was an absolutely incredible year. But when you talk about ring culture, when you talk about Super Bowl or bust culture and all that and improvements, technically, when you talk about improvement, it'd be making the Super Bowl for the Commanders based off the NFC Championship game where they got. I mean, if they lose in the divisional round or the wild card round or even in the championship again, there'll be a lot of people who says, man, look, they regressed, or, oh, they're the 1 year wonder. That's what it is. And the Commanders, and you can never say this in sports, and I hesitate to, especially when you look at the Dan Marino and he gets to the Super Bowl young and he never goes again. Like, it's that you can't guarantee it, but the Commanders should have a long window ahead of them. So I think that Washington, it was not a fluke. I think they improved their roster, and I think they have a very big opportunity here with Jaden Daniels coming back for year 2, and just the way that I think Dan Quinn got his guys to play last season. I mean, they all loved him, and it felt like the culture really shifted. You mentioned it, Wig, with the transition for them. I think Washington is going to be a threat to Philadelphia, where, in that championship game, you look at the box score, the score, a little out of hand at the end there, right? That it is what it is. But that was a young team, a young quarterback. And I think you added Deebo Samuel, who I know we're not talking about like prime Deebo Samuel here or anything like that. You have to worry about the health concerns and the injuries. But if he's healthy, I think he gives that Commanders offense exactly what they were missing last season. There were a lot of questions on defense, and I think that they added to that as well. Laremy Tunsil coming in to protect Jaden Daniels is huge. So, look, they did what they were supposed to do with a rookie quarterback, or a quarterback who was on a rookie contract, and that is build up your veteran, expensive, large contract depth around him. And so I like what they did. I think it'll be good for them.
I like what they did too. I think they have a very good chance. By chance, do you have the FanDuel odds of a Baltimore Washington?
I do. I have it here for you. Now, it's not the best odds on the site, but it's up there. Baltimore and Washington right now is plus 4,200.
See there? See. So they feel like, of the three we mentioned, that Washington, Baltimore is more likely than LA and LA, right? Yeah. LAC and LAL. So we're going to get to Baltimore right now, but I'm going to tell you what the narrative is. And this is why the expectation level is a little bit different. A lot of teams that I mentioned would love to be where Baltimore has been the last 3 or 4 years, one of the 2 best teams in the AFC, and just have some bad luck or a lack of execution that probably kept them from advancing, right? Is the pressure starting to mount? Are we now looking for Baltimore to make a mistake every single time they get a chance to do something? Is Lamar Jackson going to look like Superman, but then still be held accountable for just 1 or 2 bad plays? And does this now become a thing that's a habit? How do you get out of the mindset of thinking that way, Kevin? And how do the Ravens get over the hump?
Yeah, it certainly is a habit. And I really do think it's mental for them, where they had 3 historic years, 3 historic rosters in 2019, 2023, and 2024. And they don't have a Super Bowl win, let alone a Super Bowl appearance to show for it, which I think is extremely disappointing, because I think the narrative is out on the Ravens. This is a narrative that they have formed themselves. They're a great regular season team. They're going to win 12 to 13 games. They're going to probably win their division. They're going to get into the dance as the 1 seed, division winner, 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever it may be. But then there's going to be a game in the postseason where they just outthink themselves. They make mistakes. It's uncharacteristic. Guys don't show up in the big moments. And it's like, it's the same script in a different way every season, where in 2019, they didn't run the ball enough. And guys were making mistakes left and right. 2023 didn't run the ball enough, and there were rookie mistakes by Zay Flowers. Lamar Jackson had some questionable throws. 2024, Lamar Jackson has the turnovers. Mark Andrews has the fumble and the drop. The defense doesn't play well enough. I mean, the Ravens, Wig, in Lamar's 6 playoff losses in that era, have a minus 13 turnover differential.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
The offense, only 2 turnovers forced by the defense in 6 losses. That's not how you win football games. And so to me, Baltimore has to dispel that narrative on their own, where the book is out on them, right? The book is out. And that's why I talked about this on this morning's episode of Locked On Ravens, or as yesterday's actually at this point. I think that, to me, the Ravens are going to be underdogs, undervalued in the playoffs, regardless of the regular season that they had. Everybody's going to assume that, all right, cool, they had a great regular season. Doesn't matter. It's going to be the same old story in the playoffs. That's what people are going to think, because there's been enough of a precedent set by them to say, okay, yeah, they're not going to show up in the biggest moment. It's up to them to dispel that and get to the Super Bowl. This is the best shot they've had. This is the best roster they've had. They bring in Jair Alexander for pennies. They add DeAndre Hopkins, upgrade their wide receiver 3 spot. They didn't really lose a lot in the offseason. I mean, this is the year for them. If they don't win this year, I mean, they have a shot every season with Lamar. It's always, Lamar gives you a shot every year. But, man, I don't know if they're going to have a roster this good again with Lamar Jackson era. So they got to capitalize on it now.
Yeah, you're right. You mentioned that it wasn't the best odds. Can I take a stab at it real quick to see if I can get it? Do you have it?
For what?
Who is going, the 2 teams, the best odds for 2 teams to reach the big game?
Yeah.
I'm going to go Philadelphia is 1, and it's Kansas City's been in 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, so it would be in your mind that that's the game. Baltimore and Philadelphia. Baltimore's going to be everybody's favorite until they're not. And then Buffalo. There are 3 really good teams in the AFC. I'm going to go Kansas City and Philadelphia.
Kansas City and Philadelphia right now. I got to do a lot of scroll. There are a lot of teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that was plus 2,200, if I'm not mistaken. Let me get the official number.
Yeah, and they've
plus 2,200 is the official number for Kansas City and Philadelphia. It is not the one with the best odds, though. Not the one with the best
give
odds.
it to us. Give it to us.
So you got right now, I'm just checking to see if my math is off. Okay. So you got Buffalo and Philly at 2,100 plus 2,100. Right now, the best odds, it is Philadelphia and Baltimore plus 1,900.
There you go. So I was right. Those are the top 3. It's pretty obvious, but I told you, Baltimore's everybody's darling, and people are banking that this is the year that they actually break through. And of course, Kansas City, well, that's just Kansas City, man. They've made it 5 of the last 6 times. How you gonna just bet against the team that's done that? All right, man. But our thing was trying to create a narrative that they're on the same team. Of the 3 that we chose, LA, well, they're from the same city. LA, New York, and not really from the same city, but very, very close in proximity, Washington and Baltimore. Of those 3, I think I would probably be most excited about the last one, which is Baltimore and Washington, because of the dynamic of Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson being so friendly, the fact that I grew up there. But I tell you what, I'd be real intrigued about the Giants and the Jets, man, because first of all, those New York people would be insufferable. We would not be able to deal with them. And then everyone would just probably be so damn surprised that it might go down as the greatest Super Bowl in NFL history just because it's those 2 teams. I ain't going to pick on them too much, but if you want to find out more about all of these clubs, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. They'll give you the whole skimmy. They'll give you everything, man, on all 90 players from all of these rosters. They know them upside down because they've been scouting them since they've been in college. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast, wherever you get your podcast, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and see Kevin Oestreicher talk about those NFL darling Baltimore Ravens on Locked On Ravens each and every day. Tyler Rowland will hit you up in the morning. The Madman will come right back with another AM episode of Locked On NFL, and we'll see you again in the barbershop the next time. I am Tony Wiggins. He's Kevin Oestreicher. We'll see you later.